My name is Logan. This is the third video I made related to tk-enter and Pyckle, the Penguin client connector made in Python. This video I'm going to just be showing you the basic steps to making a simple login graphical user interface with tk-enter. This video is going to be kind of long and a little bit hard if you don't know Python very well. I'm trying to teach it as best as I can for those who don't know it, so it's super easy, but for those who do know it, it should be relatively simpler. I'm not saying you have to go learn Python, but anyway, this is the window that we're going to be making. This pops up too, by the way, but this is going to be the window we're making. It's just a simple login. It can be resized, and you can change what to resize it to and everything like that, but doesn't do much. You type a username, a password, click login, and it logs in. I'm going to show you that right now. I'm unfrozen. And that's coded in, by the way, but you can make it so it asks for user input when it comes to the server and the port. So here you see it's printed out here, but you can make it print in here. Connecting, connected, joining server, join server, sending join room packet, and then sleeping forever because it's on a while true statement. But as you can see, this works, and yeah. So now for the code part of it, it's really simple. It's not that many lines. You'd think it'd be a little bit more, like if it was Java or something. It's pretty crazy what it looks like, but I'm going to close this. So for this, I'm going to step through by the breakups, so where the notes are, and I'm going to kind of explain that section. So the first section is pretty much the top, line 3 and 4. These are just the imports, so import encumber, which is Pyckle, ttk, which is the more specifics for tk-enter, like you can get a little bit more specific about what you want to put and everything like that, and threading. The threading problem, when I didn't have it, what would happen is when I'd click login, the interface would freeze. Arthur found a fix for it and decided to thread the function, and that caused it not to freeze. And then line 4 is importing tk-enter, everything there. So line 7 through 11, this is the setup for the tk-enter application. We're going to title it root and launch it. We're going to give the title of the application tpyckle login, and the minimum size that you can shrink it down to is 230 width by 130 height. That can be changed, and if you set it to the same thing, the person can't resize the window. So that section's done. Application specifications. We have mainframe here, and we call TTK a TTK frame and frame it off of the root function, which was the basic thing. This allows us to have rows and columns and kind of be a little bit more specific about what we're doing. So we call a grid, and when you call a grid, you're pretty much making a grid, I guess, on the window application. And you, for these things right here, I'm going to just explain it quickly because I had no clue what they were. You're setting the mainframe grid to the whole application, and the stickies, what you can use is when you sticky an entry or a label or something like that, which I'll explain later, you can stick where you want to put them on the grid. So if you have a 2x2 grid, if you had a 2x2 grid, I'm going to draw this out for you really fast so it's easy. Actually, let's get more specific. Let's have a 3x3 grid. That was kind of a weird way of doing it. So, totally even. And we'll break it up here. So 3x3 grid, tic-tac-toe. If you have a dot here, and when you center it north, it'll move up, or sticky it north, it'll move up. If you sticky it west, it'll move there. East, it'll move there. South, it'll move there. If you sticky it everywhere, it'll be in the center. If you have a button and you sticky it west and east, which you'll see later, it'll take up the entire box, which is pretty useful for when you're doing something like this, because you can see this is actually another row, and I created it to take up the whole spot. So it's a big button pretty much. So that's what sticky means. And we're configuring the rows to nothing in the weight one allows us to sticky and keep it center. I'm going to skip the functions right now. I'll get back into it. It'll be pretty simple once I do the rest of it. So the values, if you've ever done something like C++ or Java, you have to, or PHP too actually, it's not static variables. You have to define the variables and what type they are before you use them. Python, you can create a variable and title it there, and it'll automatically know what type it is because Python's cool like that. So the way that I use tk-enter when I'm coding for variable names, because they're supposed to be useful variable names, you don't want to go all willy-nilly and name it anything you want. So for I'll explain actually all of this. Username var is a variable for the username. Okay, so that's pretty basic. Password variable or var is also the same thing. Server port room is not even, oh yeah, it is needed actually. So it's actually not needed. Because as you can see, if I was making something where this would be later like asked by the user, then I would call it here. But seeing as I have this server and port right here, and the room actually, because I'm calling it, this isn't needed. But go me. So labels in tk-enter. By the way, values, you can print them out, but they aren't shown. So labels are pretty much what they are, what their name is. They'll print out something. So for example, I have title label, and to do that you call ttk.label. You specify what it's in, and if you recall up here, main frame was equal to the ttk frame of the tk-enter application, so it's kind of like 3 ways up, I guess. Label, and then text is whatever you want it to be. So I had simple login version, whatever. I'll go to that now actually. Okay, sorry. So here's the title, simple login version 1.0. Username label, ttk label, mainframe text equals username, and that's right there. Password label equals ttk label or mainframe text equals password, that's there. Input. So the ttk method for input is called entry, and the ttk label is label. So an entry field creates a box, kind of like entry for HTML, I think, is input type equals text, whatever. So if you're creating a form in HTML, for this you just use ttk.entry mainframe. You can set the width of the box. I don't know about height, but here we set the text variable equal to username var for the username entry, and for the password entry we set it equal to password var. So what this means is that when someone enters something here, the input here gets stored in a string variable named username var, and I'll get back to later why that's important, how you set it there. But pretty much anytime you're getting input and you want to use the input, you'd have to save it to a text variable, which I set in the value section, and then text variable equals the name of the variable that it corresponds to. Buttons, button, who has a button? Pretty much same thing, login, button. As you can see, this part isn't even needed. This is the variable name, so title label is the variable name. But the way that I set up the coding, yours can be totally different, is I usually have what it is and then what type it is. So title label is a label, login button is a button. This should be TTK button, but anyway, it still works, which is weird. So login button equals button, sorry, it is just button. Mainframe, the text equals login, and the command is login user. So this part right here will activate, when I click it, it'll activate the function login user, which is up here. Oh, there it is. So anyway, that's how the button works, is pretty much when I press it, it will do that function. Application layout is kind of the tricky part here that I'm trying to explain as best as I can. But for TK enter, since it's based off of a grid like I showed you before, what you can do is you can set the labels, the entries, pretty much anything on the grid, and you have to set it, by the way. You can't leave it alone, it won't show up. You can define it, but you have to set it. So title label.grid, and there's a lot more than just column, row, and sticky, but I only use these here. So column 1, row 1, sticky, west and east. If we go back to the application, if we were to break this up, I'll do that right now actually. So I'm going to show you how I broke it up, and you can kind of base this off of whatever you want, like however you plan to set up your stuff. Yeah, sure, let's say I did this. Oops. That should be right. Yeah, so if we go back to the code, the highlighted part of the code, I have column 1, row 1, sticky, west, and east. So if I go over to the diagram, column 1 corresponds to the top part and how many columns down it is, and row is the left side. It's like the horizontal way, while column is vertical. So column 1 is this, I guess. If you put on a grid something, so if I set this, sorry, I'm just going to throw this in here, it's not really needed, but if I set column to 0, it goes from the lowest number. So if column was set to 0, simple login would be here and everything else would be over here somewhere, magic, in column 1, not column 0. But I started off at 0. You can start it off at 100, and if this is 200, it'll be in the next row over. So it's not really specific in that section. So column 1, row 1. Here, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Magic, right? So column 1, row 1, simple login. And I'm sticking it to west and east, so it'll take up the whole spot. If I set it to just west, I'm pretty sure it'd just be over here, and east would be over here, but I set it to the whole thing, so it fills up the whole spot. Username label.grid, column equals 1, row equals 2, sticky equals west. So column 1, row 2, sticky west is taking up the west portion of the second row. And if you see later, username entry takes up the east portion. So that's how you get it on one line. If it goes over, I'm pretty sure the second part doesn't show up. So if this box was like 50 or whatever, it wouldn't show. It would not be there because there's not enough space for username to be there, and it goes by priority. Password label is on row 3, and password entry is on row 3. So here's row 3, password is sticky to the west, and the entry is sticky to the east. Login button is on column 1, row 4, and it's sticky to the west and east. So the whole bottom section is a button that says login. And by the way, if you recall, that is login user function. So for the configure portion, I'm just going to go ahead and define that. If you recall, we have title label, which is this text. Now, if I didn't do all this part, it would just be really ugly, basic font text. So you use the configure part of TTK or TK enter. I think it's TTK. You can set font, you can set size, font, size, color, background color, foreground color. I don't know about transparency, but anyway, so font equals Syntony 18. So this is the font name and this is the font size. So 18 size font, and it's Syntony, if that's how you pronounce it. The foreground color is #018 DCE, which is this beautiful blue color. Thanks, Banksy. Username label, password label, same thing except they're size 12, and that sets it to these type color and font, and the login button is size 14 and it's 18. If I increased this to 42, it would, the whole column, whatever's on the first column or the first row, if this was 42, it'd be massive and everything else would be small and in its place where it's supposed to be. So if you kind of set it to how you want it, it'll work, if that made any sense. And then root.main loop starts tk enter, and the whole thing is just magic. So I pretty much went over inputs. So username var is the entry type, or what it gets from the entry, and password var is that. And then the button is login user. So going back to the functions, if you see definition, this is kind of where you need to know Python barely. So define login user arguments. I put this here because it'll be like, wait, there's only one argument and you said there weren't any, and get all confused. So if you just stick asterisk args here, it'll work. Username. So I set a variable username to equal to username var.get, and the get function right here, what it'll do is it'll grab whatever is in this placeholder, and if you remember, this placeholder corresponds to the entry of the username. So this new variable defined in the function is automatically it's set to whatever the person inputs. Password is the same thing. It gets the value of password var and sets it to password. And if we skip this part, you'll see down here I have a variable t equals threading.thread target equals login t.start. So this pretty much threads the definition login and it starts it. This is what causes the GUI not to freeze. Sorry, I'm going to highlight this part. This can be set to anything, but t equals threading.thread target equals login will work fine, t.start. So we're targeting login, and this is the login function right here. Obj penguin object obg penguin equals cumber.cumber, so that's starting the cumber class, or calling cumber class, sorry. Then it's connecting the username, which if you remember was the entry variable, password, which was the password variable, the server IP, which is frozen, and the integer port 3724, which is the port for frozen. Join room function to town, and then while true, sleep for whenever. If you remember correctly, if you looked at the second post I made related to this, if you go to simple login, this is pretty much it right here. Let's go ahead and take all this out. Sleep. Whoops. So join room, connect, raw input, except this time this is in the GUI, so that's not needed. And that's pretty much how you break down code. That's what I do, is I usually start off with a command line type deal, and then from there I make it into a TK enter application. I sounded really nerdy there. By pretty much taking this code and calling it in the function and then designing the rest of it. It doesn't need to go in this order anyway. You can put functions all the way down at the bottom and it'd still work, etc. It can be all mixed around. So yeah, so obj penguin equals username, password, frozen, and it's the same thing here. It's the same exact script pretty much, except it's built with a graphical user interface. I'll show you another example of when I'm doing that actually right now. So stamp adder I made. This just uses 4 stamps to go through the arrays and call add stamp function. And that's pretty much every non-member free-to-play stamp you can get for games. And now for stamp adder, I'm going back through and I'm saying, okay, here, I'll go to the top one right here. Or actually, so you see this code. If I copy it and I go back here and I go to right here and I paste, it's the same exact code disregarding the line setup. I keep messing it up. I'm trying to show you what it looks like. So anyway, yeah, join room, sleep. So what I did was I pretty much took this, pasted it right here, and made a simple login above it, and everything else was part of the application. If I launch it right now, I'll show you what it looks like. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do this. Sorry. Didn't want to. Yeah, so it just looks like this pretty much right now. I can fix that. It's the same exact thing. Stamp adder version 1, username, password field set into rows 2 and 3, and then a button for whatever, which I can make anything, I guess, to add any type of stamp or whatever game they're doing. So that's the basic setup on how I create TK enter scripts. You can kind of do what you want. Once again, pretty much the only things that you're going to need is, or that's important if you are doing this, you need to import this stuff. This, I guess, you can copy and paste. You can copy and paste all this and kind of use it and like alter it to your own taste. So if you want to change the font and the color and where everything is placed and the title of it and the size, you can do that just to kind of mess around and get used to TK enter. I'll provide this script in a paste bin like the last ones. Wow, I don't know what else there is to talk about, I guess. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. Sorry for this video being so long. I doubt anyone's going to get to this point, but if you do, good job. You get a star from me. I know that's important. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. I'm pretty good with TK enter so far, and I've only been using it for a short amount of time. You can create a lot of cool things with it. If you don't know what you can make with it, I'll show you right now, but you probably already know if you're watching this. So, Minecraft tools, thanks to Thomas, gave me this idea. It's not completely done right now. I still have to create the view skin function. I'm having troubles with it, but anyway, that's my account, by the way. So that's that. You can have skill grabbers for video games. So this is for RuneScape if anyone plays. If you want this code, I'll give you this code too. It's not that hard of a thing to make. But yeah, that works. And then also if you want, if you don't have a Mac, if you have a Windows, TK enter on a Mac comes with these 3 files. On a Windows it doesn't, but these files are amazing where they have simple things that you can make, and you can look at the code and copy the code or rewrite the code if you want. That pretty much I use to teach myself TK enter, a simple entry box. Well, sup. So if you want these files, I'll include them too. It's actually pretty cool too. If you check this out, where's it at? Someone made this using TK enter. I think it's awesome. I'm not gonna play this right now. So yeah, if you want these files, you can look them up online or try to find them. Or if you must, I can give them to you because it took me a while to find them, being that I'm on Windows. Wind blows. I guess that's everything. Sorry for rambling on a little bit there too much. Just trying to show you people what you can do with this. If you like the video, positive feedback always makes me feel nice and warm inside. I guess that's everything. I'll provide this script. This script I already gave in the old one. And try to make scripts like stamp adders or unpatched item adders and stuff. Because the better you are with it, the better other people can get by learning off of you. So that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, just post in the comments or on the thread that this is going to thread that this is going to be on. And see you.